What's goody? Hey man, as I sit here right now today, one of the greatest players, one of the greatest point guards, one of my favorite players of all time, Russell Westbrook, has officially announced his retirement after 18 seasons from the NBA, man. This is a guy who in my last couple of videos, I was talking about maybe him joining the Heat. I had kind of alluded to something like that, a team that kind of needed some guard play, right? He decided to hang it up and call it a career, and I don't blame him for that. I do feel like Russell Westbrook is a guy who has been a little disrespected by the NBA and by NBA media and everything like that throughout these last couple of years of his career, and I am not the type of person to do that. I want everyone here to remember how great Russell Westbrook was as a player, how great Russell Westbrook was as a person, because every single thing I've ever seen about him has been positive. I've very rarely ever seen him have negative interactions, whether it be with fans or whoever. The only time I can remember him ever having negative interactions, it was when people were calling him out of his name or when people were disrespecting him. I have never heard a bad thing about Russell Westbrook. I remember vividly growing up in the 2010s and growing up through that Instagram time and always seeing Russell Westbrook as a guy who I looked up to, and I remember seeing him as a guy giving back to the Oklahoma City community throughout his time at OKC. So I want to make it clear that I'm trying to celebrate Russell Westbrook not only as a basketball player but also as a human being here. He announced his retirement via a video that he released on Twitter that I just watched, and it was a beautiful video, man. He did a great job. The narrator did a great job. The scene was set beautifully. But one of my favorite things about it was at the end, he goes into this room. And if you haven't seen the video, go watch it. It's on his Twitter. But it's a room. He goes out from where his trophies are and all the memorabilia from his career. And he goes into this room. And it's kind of empty. It's a construction. It's obviously a work in progress. He says that that's what he is because he's not done as a person. And I love that because I would absolutely love to see Russell Westbrook be a guy who goes into NBA media or goes into the podcast space or does some of these things. Because I do think he's an NBA player that probably has a lot of stories to tell. I'm sure he's a guy that's entertaining from everything I've ever seen. He's a very outgoing, energetic, and entertaining person. I remember, like I said, growing up in the 2010s, seeing him. One of the things that made me fall in love with Russell Westbrook as a person and as a player wasn't just his dunks and his electrifying highlights and all the phenomenal things he did and the triple doubles and all this and all that. It was the way he interacted with fans. I remember him vividly interacting with, I think it was like a little girl or something like that at an OKC game, and I don't know why, for some reason that picture is coming up in my head right now. I remember him dancing with little kids before games, dancing with campaign before games, and how viral that type of stuff was going during his MVP season and everything like that. And I just really want to celebrate all of that before I get to the on-court stuff, because Russell Westbrook was truly one of the faces of the NBA, is a guy that is going to be one of the most remembered players by me, is one of the greatest to ever play this game. And had a phenomenal persona as well, and that's why I would really love to see him go into like NBA media or podcast space or something like that. But anyways, to celebrate his NBA career, man, I just want everyone to understand how great Russell Westbrook was throughout his NBA career, right? This was a guy, fourth pick, coming out of UCLA, going to the Supersonics, obviously only played in OKC because they moved that year. This is a guy who in his 18 years was a 9-time All-Star, 2-time scoring champ. I need y'all to understand this. LeBron James has the most points ever. I think he only has one scoring championship. That's how impressive it is that Russell Westbrook is a 2-time scoring champ in an era where he was going up against Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, Steph Curry, James Harden, all of these phenomenal scorers. Most of them some of the greatest scorers of all time. Multiple of them are in like the top 5, top 6, top 10 greatest scorers of all time conversations. And he still was able to win 2 scoring champs. He's not only a 9-time All-Star, but he was a 9-time All-NBA player, a 3-time assist champion, 3 times in a league with Chris Paul, Steve Nash, Steph Curry, James Harden, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, all these guys who he played in a league against throughout his career, throughout his career, he was still able to be a 2-time scoring champion, a 3-time assist champion. Forget about all the players he played against. Just think about all the phenomenal guards that were in the league throughout the same 18 years that Russell Westbrook was, and he was still able to do that multiple times. Made all-rookie team, was a 2-time All-Star MVP, one of the most infamous, one of the most memorable, one of the most impressive MVPs of all time. He did something, and I understand that now when you think about the MVP, when you think about triple doubles, it's something that's not quite as rare, right? We think of guys like, we have multiple guys that are getting triple doubles night in and night out, and we have multiple guys who you would have never thought would have got a triple double a decade ago who are getting a triple double randomly now. So but because of that, I feel like people are starting to kind of disrespect or discredit Russell Westbrook and what he did during his MVP season. I need people to understand and go back and watch. Because I grew up during this time. I remember I was a guy that was an NBA nerd during this time to an extent. I remember how people used to talk about these old players back in the day and how some of these records were talked about. The stuff that Oscar Robertson did with the triple-double, nobody thought was ever going to be done. People thought that record was the most untouchable record in the NBA. You can go look it up. There is YouTube videos where there are multiple Hall of Famers. I think LeBron James might have even talked about it, where that was like the most unbreakable record in the NBA. And Russell Westbrook went out there and demolished it in that triple-double season, or in that MVP season. Absolutely demolished it and finished as an NBA 75th anniversary team guy. Just an absolutely phenomenal career from Russell Westbrook. If you ever go through his basketball reference page, you're going to see every single year that he was in his prime. You're going to see he finished as a top 5, top 10 MVP candidate every single year once he got into his prime. He was an all-star for pretty much all those years, every single year consecutively, other than a year he got hurt. And then you're going to say, okay, wow, you see him, and that's all impressive. And then you see him leave OKC, you see him leave Houston, and you see him go to Washington, where he finishes in the MVP, where he finishes 11th in MVP voting in a year that was a down year, where the team wasn't a phenomenal team. Sure, he averaged a triple-double, but it wasn't the cleanest triple-double. It wasn't the prettiest triple-double. He averaged 5 turnovers a game. It wasn't beautiful. The team wasn't great. They made the playoffs at like a 42 and 40. It was like a 41 and 41 team. They just weren't great, right? So you see his prime start to edge off a little bit. You see the athleticism start to wear down, even though it never fully wore off. You start to see Doug's stuff go down a little bit once he gets out of Houston. And you see him still in Washington, where he was notably towards the end, if not outside of his prime, at 32 years old, where he still finishes at MVP 11. And then he stays in the league for a couple more years and still is productive. I don't want you to believe what people are going to let you believe. People are going to sit here and allow for you to believe that Russell Westbrook, since he touched the Lakers, was like the worst player in the NBA. It has not ever been the case. He was bad in LA, but it was a bad fit more than it was him being the worst player in the NBA. Russell Westbrook was never, ever like worst player in the NBA, and I don't care how the NBA treated him. I don't care that it was difficult for him to get picked up before he went to Sacramento. I don't care that it was difficult for him to get picked up before he retired. Russell Westbrook, if you go look at the accolades, even in these years that you and I would think of him as being outside of his prime or whatever else, he's still finishing as a top 5, top 6, top 7, top 10 finisher for 6th man of the year. All of these years, he's still a productive NBA player. He's not a guy that played until he was last man on the bench, absolute bum, not worthy of playing, because he was never that bad. Absolutely legendary career for Russell Westbrook, man. He is retiring as one of my favorite players of all time, one of the greatest point guards of all time, and I cannot state that enough times. Nothing but love over here for Russell Westbrook, man, and I felt like his retirement was legendary enough. He was legendary enough, at least for me and my growing up as an NBA fandom, as an NBA fan or into NBA fandom, that he was worthy. His retirement was worthy of a video to me. Anyways, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching as always. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. Let me know what type of stuff y'all want to see. I got videos coming out later this week, so keep a heads up for those. But yeah, man, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Don't forget to keep God first as always, all right? Peace.